combine aspects of 4. We're going to take this beautiful mug right here and kind of have a little fun with it. So essentially what you're going to do is you're going to take aspects of, or different parts of the face of different people and combine them together. So I'm going to use the lasso tool here and grab Stevie's mouth. Just a real rough selection here. Then I'm going to go up to the select menu and modify and feather that selection. I'm going to feather it about 6 pixels. We're going to feather it further when we collect it. So then I'm going to copy it from this file, and then I'm going to come over to the other file that I have over here, Hogan, and paste. Alright, and you've got this mouth in here. So then it's a matter of moving it into the right place. So I have it sort of in the right place, so that looks hilarious already. And I'm going to move it more properly in the right place. And you notice that like the angle of her mouth and his mouth don't totally line up, so we're going to have to rotate it as well. So a way that I like to do that, and there's many sort of strategies or techniques to get to this point, but this is the way that I like doing it, is I take this layer. You see layer 1 is active right now. I take the opacity down to say about 60%. That way I can kind of see an overlay of both mouths on top of each other at the same time. Right? So then I can kind of like gauge how to match up the new layer with the old one. So I'm going to take the transform options, right, which are found in the edit menu, and I'm going into rotate. And if you grab these at the corners, you can twist it sideways. So I'm trying to straighten it to line up with the original mouth, and what I'm doing is sort of lining up the middle teeth, right? So the 2 front teeth together, and I double click on the inside and apply that transformation. Now I still think that we could make Stevie's mouth a little bigger, so I'm going to hit Control T, which is a free transform. I'm going to hold down Shift to keep it from distorting. I'm going to bring the size up so that the size of the mouth matches it a little bit more. Just like that. Try to find a good spot. Here I'm sort of lining up the top lip there. See how that looks. That looks pretty good. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to distort it just a little bit. Notice how the 2 nostrils and the 2 noses don't quite line up, and so for the face structures to line up, I did Control T to transform, but I'm not going to hit Shift this time. So I'm going to drag this up just a little bit. Right? It's going to distort it ever so slightly, but then it lines up the noses together. Right? There we go. That's hilarious. Okay, so now that I've got this in better position, I'm going to take my opacity and the level on that layer back up to 100%. And that's pretty good. It lines up well. Okay. Now you can tell the coloring is totally off. Okay, and you're going to find this, with people with different skin tones and whatnot. You really have to sort of match one to the other. And so the way that I like to do that is to use these along the right hand side, which are called adjustment layers. Adjustment layers are great because they make slight adjustments to color and lightness and things like that, but I can also pin them to one layer, because what I want to do is I want to adjust the lightness of Stevie's mouth here, but not the whole image. So I don't want to just go up here into my image menu and go into adjustments, and where you also have these color balance and things like that, hue and saturation, a lot of the same menus that you find over here. The adjustment layers, you can pin it to one layer, so I'm going to show you how to do that. So you'll notice that the light is a bit darker here on Stevie's mouth than it is on Hogan's. So I'm going to take, where is it? Hue and saturation right here. Okay, I'm going to click that button, and look what happens. First you get some properties here that will manipulate in a second, and you get another layer here. So it's its own layer, but it's not. It's an adjustment layer, which is a slightly different style of layer. But what we want to do is, once we have that there, we want to do one other additional step. So I'm going to actually hold down the Alt key and hover over the line between layer 1 and that hue and saturation layer. And you notice that little icon comes up. I'm going to click it. And then you get this arrow pointing down, which means that this hue and saturation adjustment will only apply to the layer directly beneath it. So now that that's all set up, I'm going to go ahead and take the lightness and clock it up and kind of play with it. See how already that's looking a little bit better? It's a little lighter on that front, and so I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm going to close the properties there. And the skin tone isn't quite a perfect match yet. We've got a bit more pinky tone on Hogan's face, so we've got to match that a little bit. So we're going to go to color balance here, another adjustment layer. And with this, I'm going to take the reds up just a little bit, maybe a tiny bit of magenta. There we go. Just a little bit swinging towards the magenta side and to the red side, just to match that up. Alright, and so we're looking a bit better. Now we want to kind of fuzz the layers together. So I'm taking my eraser tool and coming up to into the brushes, and you notice that I've got a fairly large brush, and the hardness, it's fairly soft and fuzzy on the edge. So what I'm going to do is come around to the edge. I've got the opacity too. You can bring the opacity down to a lower to have a softer feel, and then you can click a bunch of times and erase and clean up. Oh, it's not working. Here we go. I was on an adjustment layer here, so I'm going to click onto layer 1. There we go. It'll work. Okay, and then now notice I'm just kind of grazing the edge to soften that line, whereas before it still looked kind of chopped off. I'm going to fuzz off that edge, just like that. Right, so all of a sudden I've got this. If you zoom that out, that looks hilarious. All right. Zooming out is a good idea. If you're up close a lot, you can kind of tweak certain things. So if I'm like, I don't understand. Zooming out, it looks a little small compared to the face. I can go back in here and just make a slight adjustment right like that. All right, there we go. There's a mouth added on there from Stevie. Next, all right, let's grab something else. Let's grab this Monzavi's nose here. Alright, so I'm going to again take another really rough drawing, selecting around the nose area. I'm going to hit Shift F6, which is the shortcut to feathering, and feather it by 6 pixels, and copy that and bring it over here and paste. Oops, I'll try that again. I'm going to click on the top layer so it goes right on top, and try it again and paste. Alright, we've got this nose on top. Alright, so just roughly putting it in place, and then I'm going to follow very much the same steps. So I bring the opacity down, find the move tool, and I can see kind of the tips of both noses and the nostrils and stuff like that, and kind of line it up in the right spot. Alright, might see, do a little rotation, see if that makes any difference. Yeah, maybe. Just slight rotation. Double click to apply that transformation. The coloring needs a little adjustment. Okay, skin tones aren't going to match up exactly, so I'm going to grab myself a color balance one again, hitting Alt in between the layers to pin it to that layer that's immediately below it. Trying to match that Hogan pinkiness right there. Right. That's a bit better. Okay, so you can see that the skin tone is starting to match just a little bit more. So go back to this layer number 2, grab my eraser tool and see if I can fuzz out some of the differences under the nose, especially. You notice I'm going right up underneath the nostril, along the edge. You can kind of coming down right in between there. So there we go, new nose. It's like it was always there. All right, so now let's see, we're left with all right. I'll take my funny lopsided eyes here. So there we go. Grab my eyes. Take another rough cut. I'm going to go hit Shift F6 to feather that selection before I copy it. Bring it over to my document before and paste it in. Oops, made that same mistake again. Make sure you're on the top level and paste it in. And move it on up. Okay, so you can see that in my photograph that head tilt was, my head's way more tilted than his is, so obviously I'm going to have to make some serious changes to the positioning of that. So I'm going to again go over to the layers, to the opacity, and go into the edit, transform, rotate, and zoom in so I can see even more clearly. I want to line up those eyes. You can kind of move it around to see is it lining up right? Double click inside there. I'm going to transform it one more time. I think I'm going to see if I can make it so the pupils line up nicely with the original. There we go. Okay, so notice how the pupils and the irises line up nicely and they're centered on each other and the proper spacing. So I've got that. I'm going to double click to apply that transformation, and then I've got the opacity. I'm going to bring that back up. Oh man, that looks weird. It's funny when you change the eyes and all of a sudden it looks, you should really start to look totally different. So let's go ahead and grab that eraser. Got lots of extra information that we don't need on the side. We want to really blend that into the face. Oh, circles under my eyes. I think I need to get more sleep or something. Don't have Hogan's youthful glow, I guess. I don't know what's going on. There we go. Okay, so that's a little bit better. Let's zoom out to see what that's looking like. Ooh, that's one ugly human. Alright. Oh god. Eyes. I think with those eyes, maybe a bit more shadowing than it needs to be. So I'm going to grab that hue and saturation adjustment layer one more time. Hit Alt to pin it to the layer below, and just bring up the lightness just a bit to kind of match that. I don't want to overdo it. Let's see what that looks like. Zoom that out. That's a little bit better. You can rename these if you'd like, and do want to open that. There we go. Okay, so there you go. There you have it. A much less attractive human being than we started with. Looks like a keen intern. Here we go. I'm taking a look here. Any sort of last minute adjustments. I'm still not totally happy with the placement of the eyes. So I'm kind of moving it around with the move tool. Let's see. There we go. You can double click back on that thing. Zoomed out. Yeah, that's a bit better. I think I'd overdone the lightness before, so it was kind of faded. There we go. Zoom in one more time. I'm going to grab my eraser tool with my fuzzy edge, click on layer 3 again. Erase some of those dark bags under my eyes. There we go. Now we look more youthful. There we go. Perfect. Alright, so there you go. You have a combination of 4 people. If you wanted to add a 5th, you could grab someone else's shoulders or a hat or earphones or something like that, and finish out the 5. Alright, so once you have all these, you've got all these layers going on and you're happy with it, what you can do is you can go up to here to this layers option and down to flatten image, and bam, okay, all of them are synced and into one layer. And then you can file, save as, alright, go into here, rename it something, new kid, make sure that the format is set as JPEG, hit save. That's going to save your new file as a new kid in class. So there you have it. Give it a shot.